The first weekend of September, here at St. Thomas More, we had our block party outside in the circle. And that was meant for each of us to gain an awareness of each other as parishioners and the opportunity to gather information about ministries one can participate here at St. Thomas More. Last weekend, we were invited to connect with fellow parishioners by completing a connection card in which we chose which ministries we would participate in with other parishioners. This weekend and next, we continue our reflections on participation as we focus this time on our finances. When we read about the ministry of Jesus, he began his preaching and healing in the company of 12 of the 12 and a group of women volunteers. And these women were able to provide for the needs of Jesus and his disciples out of their own resources. All who believed were together and had all things in common. And Jesus also tells us, if anyone wishes to be first, he shall be the last of all and the servant of all. Once again, reminding us about thinking about others and acting on their behalf. Now, before you tune me out and think, here we go, time to hear about giving more, or thinking to yourself, how much I give is only between me and God, and no one else is going to tell me otherwise. Or thinking, well, the parish has been getting along with the amount I give or do not give. Why should I worry about my giving to the church when I even can't seem to make ends meet even now? Have a house mortgage, car payments, monthly bills, groceries, and the needs of my children. I'll give when I can. Having these types of mindsets will restrain us from seeing what God is really all about. And that is, everything we have comes from God. Everything we have is given freely to us by God. In the second reading from James today, where there is jealousy and ambition, disorder exists. Thinking about that. Where jealousy, we become jealous of others, of what they have, or we become overly ambitious, it says disorder exists. With the wisdom of God, there is peace and good fruits. With the wisdom of God, having our lives focus on what God asks of us, says there is peace and good fruits. What we have, and that is everything, is a blessing from God, and therefore it does not belong to us. We only are to care for what we have been given. Now, we can see life as, I own everything, and since it is mine, I do with it what I want. I might let God have some of it. We're called to move from that ideal to the spirituality as what we call a steward. It is not my stuff, but it is entrusted to me. God has entrusted me with what I have. God has entrusted me with what I have. And then we ask the question, what does God want me to do with what has been given to me? And the answer is to use it for our good and the good of others. For when I see everything as mine, I then take it for granted and I'm indifferent. And then when it's gone, I become resentful. Rather, look at what God has given me, and I didn't do anything to deserve it. If it's taken away, it was not mine to begin with. See, there is a difference between seeing what I possess versus being thankful for what God has shared with me. Having the spirituality or the understanding or the mindset that all is a gift. And this outlook requires a leap of faith, trusting in God. It requires a large leap of faith. If we say we're called to trust in God, Jesus, I trust in you, well, then it makes sense, it's understandable that we should trust him also with our finances. But we know that takes a leap of faith and sometimes a very great trust in God. Because we can think, oh, I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this. Trusting in God. For we recall in Scripture, God is faithful. God is faithful. For me, trusting in God with my finances has taken a very long time. When I first started to merely give to the church, it was merely giving because of, so to speak, the Catholic guilt thing. I had to give. You better give. And for me, the guilt moved me to squeeze my money and just get a little out of it. Just squeeze just a little bit so I can say I gave. I've given. I've done my part. But over the years, as I continue to give, I've been able to freely give. And by that I'm saying that when I receive something, I already recognize it comes to me almost automatically now. What am I going to give back from what I have received? And it's finally gotten to the point where I understand a little bit more when you hear about and read about people saying, I enjoy giving of my finances. For a long time I thought, oh yeah, right, they're just saying that. But it really is. There is something, a joy in being able to give back. And freely, not out of obligation, not out of a sense, well, I have to. But I've gotten to the point where I can say, yes, I enjoy giving. And mind you, that doesn't come overnight. That takes many years. But it has to be intentional. Father Mike Schmitz, perhaps you've heard of him, he says that it is our calendars and our checkbooks that tell the story of what is most important to us. The things we value the most are where we put these two scarce resources, our time and our finances. A person who has embraced stewardship spends their money differently than one who has not. And so we look at one's bank statement and review, where is my money being spent? Where is my money being spent? Giving of our finances truly does take great faith. We are to place our trust in God. Now, if we wait until we feel that we are financially comfortable, that will never happen. We will never take the step. For the commercialism of our society works to convince us that we never have enough. No matter how much we have, there is always something else we will want. If we're ever going to give regularly, we'll have to step back from our endless list of wants and believe that our generous and abundant God will always provide us with all that we need and even with enough to give back a generous share. Now, we're called to do our part, and that is making the decision to place giving to the church as a priority rather than giving what is left over. Now, kind of lightheartedly, it's been said the state of giving in the church is something like this. If you have $50, you go out to dinner. If you have 20, you go to a movie. If you have 10, you go get fast food. If you have $1, you go to church. Giving financially to the church will not happen automatically. Each of us must make an intentional commitment to give back what we have been entrusted with from God. Next week, each individual or family here at St. Thomas More will be asked to complete a pledge card during Mass to state their amount of financial giving to St. Thomas More. This week, we're all invited to prayerfully reflect on our level of giving to St. Thomas More. And it might be to increase your giving over time to reach a level that I know in my heart is what I should be giving. Perhaps it might be choosing to take the first step in giving to the church, or deciding to change from giving minimally without much thought, or already recognizing the blessings and are giving in thanksgiving for what God has entrusted to us. It really is true that God will not be outdone in generosity. What we just need to do is take the first step and see for ourselves.